Yo, what's going on, everybody? It is 1 p.m. here in Crystal Lake, Illinois. That means it's time for another live stream. Today is Thursday, June 1st, 2023. Because it's Thursday, we're bringing on a guest. Today's guest is going to be Ashley Mateo. If you've been watching the channel, and I know you guys here have, you've probably already seen her many times appearing in a variety of the travel videos. She's one of my favorite people to find whenever I end up at a brand event. And I just like spending time with her, even outside of brand events too. I'm not saying I only like to work with her, but she's been someone that I've been enjoying spending time with. We spent a lot of time together at TRE last December and then all over the world now at this point. So it's been pretty cool to spend time with her, get to meet her a little bit more. And now she's going to be on the live stream. So you guys get to meet her a little bit more too. But before we do that, let's say hi to everyone listening on the podcast, on the audio only version. Guys, it's getting hot out there. I went out there for a sunrise run today and it was hot. I didn't even run out there that long because it was my kid's last day of school. So I had a lot of stuff to take care of, but hopefully you're staying nice and hydrated, even though it's going to be really, really hot out there. And everyone that's watching this on YouTube later, but not live, welcome to the #1 running podcast to listen to in the background while you're trying to figure out what other kinds of sunscreens are easier to put on children in the summer than the one that you currently have. There isn't really another better answer out there, not that I've heard of yet, but it's always fun to kind of look around and see what's going on. All right. Let's say hi to a couple people in the chat before we bring Ashley in here. We've got Brian Lang, who's got a question that I actually think might be a good one for Ashley to answer. So we'll put a pin in this one. But he does say, "Sup, co-fam, and happy Pride." And his question is, what's the first sign you notice when you're overtraining? For me, everything just feels like heavy. That's kind of the thing for me. I'm always tired. Nothing ever feels refreshed. But that could be it. But also, it just could be that it's getting hot now. That's another thing. Cobalt Blue says, "Hi, Kofuzi. I'm happy it's June. It's the best month of the year." And let's see what else we got here. We got Eliza says, "Hi, CoFam. Excited for today's guest." She says, "Hi, Ashley. I'm friends with your friend Claire." Well, I feel like that's a good time to bring in Ashley here. Ashley, welcome to the live stream. What's going on?
Not much. I'm excited to be here. I love talking to you about anything running related.
I know. It's so good to finally have you on here. I feel like, because I was, trying to find someone to come on this week, and I was like, oh, I've already had Ashley on before. And I was like, wait a minute, I don't think I've had Ashley on the show before. So I'm like, yeah, definitely. We got to have you on here. So I'm happy to have you here. Let's just jump right into it. Do you know Eliza? She says she's friends with your friend Claire.
I need to know more. I have several Claire friends.
Oh, did you really?
So you're great, Eliza.
Okay. All right. And then let's go, because you are also a running coach.
Yes.
Let's talk about the overtraining question too. Let's just dive right into that.
I would totally agree with you. I think fatigue is the #1 sign of overtraining. And I don't just mean fatigue on the run. I mean, typically my legs do feel heavy. Workouts feel harder than they should. Easy runs feel harder than they should, but also just fatigue in general. I just want to sleep all the time. I never feel refreshed and recovered. And I think that can be a really big indicator that something is up with your training.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Now, before we get too much further into it, because I got a lot of questions about, I saw you ran Boulder. I saw you ran a fantastic race in Italy, which I never even heard of, but now it's like on my list of like, oh, I want to try this race. But let's go back in case people don't know who you are. I always struggle with like how to define, are you a writer? Are you a journalist? I'm like, I bet you in those worlds, one term is offensive and the other is not. So like help everyone understand who you are. Cause if you read running media content, like publications, you've read Ashley's work, but you might not have realized it's Ashley. So give everyone a sense of who all you've written for.
Yeah. I am a journalist or a writer or an editor,
Okay.
whatever you want to use. I've done all the things. I've written for everywhere from Runner's World, Women's Running, Canadian Running Magazine, the Wall Street Journal, Men's Journal, Time, Women's Health, Shape, Self. I could keep going, but that sounds peggy. I've been in this industry for about a little over a decade now. And I'll write about running for anywhere. I love talking about it, writing about it, working with people in the industry. And more recently, in the past, I guess 2019, I got my coaching certification. And so now I work directly with runners coaching them instead of just giving advice through a third party like Runner's World or Women's Running. And I really love that. So it kind of brings the whole thing full circle.
Nice. Drew Whitcomb, a friend of both of ours, says you are running #1 ambassador. And so I would say
I
definitely.
really do love running. I don't know if I'm the #1. I think there are a lot of people out there who really love running, but I'll take it. I'll take the title.
Nice. And we have further context from Eliza. The Claire she knows is the Claire in Denver who just got a.
Yes. We had a great time running Boulder together.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. So now, like, I mean, I almost went to Boulder this year, but I ended up not going because I'm going to Boulder next week for a brand event. So I'll be up in the area, and I was like, I can't go 2 weekends in a row. That seems excessive. Well,
choice.
Yeah, I mean,
kids, it's fine. I get
it. I know, kids. It's the last week of school. It's kind of like a big deal for them. Although, like, the last thing they want to do is hang out with dad when they're like school's out. But I felt like I should be here. So I have like a sense of what Boulder is, but like it's a, to put it very, very simply, it's a 10K, but like it's so much more than that. Like, can you give us a sense of like what Boulder is? I mean, like, I know it's hard to put it into like a couple of words, but
well, I guess from a description perspective, it is one of the largest road races in the world. I think it's still in the top 10, or it was as of 2019. One of the biggest in the US too. I think it's top 5 there. And I forget what year it started, 79? I want to say 79. And I think it's just grown exponentially from a small community race to something that draws people from all over the country, maybe the world. It is a 10K. It's a very hard 10K. It is mostly uphill. You get a couple descents in there, but for one, you're racing at altitude, and 2, you're mostly climbing during that. So it's not a race that I race. I do it for fun. And I'm also new to it. So when I first moved to Denver, that was the one race that everybody told me I had to do. Even my friends who were non-runners run Boulder because it's such a big community event. But I moved here in September 2019, and for the first 2 years, it was canceled. There was no race. So last year was the first time I actually participated in it in person. And I am lucky enough to have a group of friends here who have been deeply, deeply involved in the running community for a long time and are huge fans of Boulder and put together a big run club aspect of the race. So you do the first lap and then you do a second lap for fun. And there's a whole bunch of other fun parts of that, but I won't give that away. You can see it on Instagram, and I don't know how loud it is. So
yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned the second lap, and by second lap, you mean you run the 10K first,
yes.
like a regular race, and then you run the race again, but this time stopping at basically kind of like fun running it, like saying hi to everyone along the course. Participating in, I've seen like water slides, I've seen people chugging beers, doing some dancing, just partaking in like all the funnest parts of a big road race.
Yeah, so it's actually kind of interesting. Last year during my first lap, I started very early, in one of the earlier waves, and was kind of disappointed. There weren't a ton of spectators. It was very quiet. It was 7 a.m. in Boulder on a Monday morning, holiday morning. It just felt kind of sleepy. And I was like, guys, what? You guys have hyped this race up so much. Like, I'm kind of unimpressed, to be honest. And so you finish in the stadium, in Folsom Stadium at CU, which is very cool. You immediately exit, jog back to the start. And then the second lap, which we started probably around 8:30, was an entirely different race. I mean, I cannot stress how different the experience was. Because like you said, there's a trampoline around mile 1, there's multiple slip and slides, there's kiddie pools, there's belly dancers, there's people handing out, Jell-O shots from tables in their front yard. I'm trying to think of some of the weirdest things. There's a bacon station. There's all kinds of insane things that you're like, how is this happening during a road race right now? And so on the second lap, it's very fun to stop and actually participate in those things, because if you're taking the first lap seriously, then I don't have time to wait in line for a piece of bacon.
Exactly. That makes sense. How far is it from like, so you say like you finish the race and then you go jog back. So it's like, for some reason I had it in my head that this was a point to point race. And I'm like, how do people get back
No,
to the
it
start
is.
line? Oh, it is. So
It
like,
is.
so you're doing 18 miles on the day then?
I think it ended up being just under 15 total.
Okay. Okay.
But
So
when I say the second lap is a fun run, it truly is. Like, I
yeah.
think last year I ran the 5K, or sorry, the 10K pretty casually on the first round. It like a 55-minute final time. And then the second lap took us 2 hours.
Oh, okay.
So it's a walk run in the second
Okay.
lap.
But that's a big day. That's
So it's
a,
a really big day. I
yeah.
was not ready for that.
Yeah, I mean, like that's I mean, like I hadn't like done the math in my head, and I'm just like it's occurring to me now that I'm like, oh wait, this is a lot of running.
It's a
Even
lot
if
of
you
running. It's a
are,
lot of time on feet. It's a lot
yeah,
of time just out there and being like 11 out of 10 excited.
yeah. Oh man, that's awesome. And then like this is a race that's unusual because they have the elites run after all the normies run. So
Yes.
then what time does the elite because like you're doing all of this with time to then watch the pros run too?
Hmm. I want to say, I can't remember the exact time, but I want to say the pros start around 11,
Oh,
maybe.
okay.
I remember last year we were at mile 5 when we saw them coming by, and we still made it to the stadium in order to see them finish, which was really cool because Alafine won last year, and that was exciting to see. This year, I did not see them start on the course, but we were in the stadium. And it's a really unique experience to finish your own race, and it basically funnels everybody in. You finish on the field in the stadium, and then you go through the snack bag pickup and whatnot, and then you can just go grab a seat and sit in this kind of iconic stadium and watch the pros make that final. It's like less than 200 meters, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like that's a really fun way to do a race overall.
Yeah.
Because and then the pro, I mean, I know it's harder for the pros because they're starting later in the day on a Memorial Day race, but it's like, but then like everyone sees you because otherwise it's like I feel like a lot of times whenever I see pros at a race, it's like people aren't there yet, because they're like,
Yeah.
oh, well, my family members aren't going to be here for another 2 hours, so like I'm not even
Yeah.
on the side of the street. But if you do it that way, then there's just already a ton of people out.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not somebody who starts at the front of the pack in any race. So I don't really know what that quiet racing experience feels like, except for at Boulder last year. And I would imagine as a pro, that's a unique, really exciting experience to have crowds like that. I mean, you get that, I would imagine, towards the end of a marathon, but in a shorter race like this, the winners ran it in like 29, 33 minutes. That's quick.
Yeah, yeah, that's a fast one. Um, Let me ask you this: like, it looks like, and here's kind of like my like pessimistic attitude on certain things. This race looks like so much fun, but I feel like anytime people are having that much fun, like other people want to shut that down. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, has this race always been like this, or is this something that has gotten like a little bit escalated over the past couple of years, or what's your sense on that?
Honestly, I don't know
Okay.
because I didn't have that experience with it before last
Mhm.
year.
Mhm.
I know my friends have been doing the double laps for like 15 years almost.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's definitely very much a big community race and has been, I think, from the start. But I'm sure, like all things road running, it's gotten even bigger over
Right.
the past, if not decade, the past couple of years for sure.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully it'll continue. I'd like to try and run it next year. I'm trying to think like May is always such a hard time for me because I spend basically the month of May in Iowa
Yeah.
for with all these family stuff. But I'm like next year there's a little bit of a lull in the grandchildren,
Hmm.
so like the nieces and nephews aren't graduating from as many things as
Yeah.
a collective, next year. So I'm hoping maybe next year could be the year for that.
Yeah. It's tough. It's a holiday weekend, but I know the people who miss it for things like weddings or other family travel, they are always really bummed to miss it. It's not exciting. It's one of those things that you're like, I just know how bad the FOMO is going to be.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, maybe I mean, maybe I just bring the family out. That's
It's a
also
great family race.
Martha, who also ran Boulder Boulder this year, says, I've heard for many years it's been like that.
I love that.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. Let's switch gears real quick and talk about, you did a race, and like, I feel like this came out of nowhere. I mean, I saw on your Strava and on your feed that you were like doing more trail running. I'm like, oh, she must be testing some new trail equipment. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, you're running an ultra marathon race in Italy somewhere.
Not an ultra.
Oh,
Not an
well,
ultra.
okay. But it was still a really
People
long.
have said that to me, and I'm like, guys, 30K is not an ultra. We are not there yet.
I thought it was a 30-mile. Okay. I thought it was like a 50. But still, that is a long trail race.
It's a very long trail race.
Tell me a little bit about like what was the race? Like, I mean, I need more details.
Yes. So just like 2 weeks after we got back from Tokyo, Thomas from Believe in the Run called me, and he was like, I have a proposition for you. And I was like, oh God. And he's like, we can't do this. So do you want to go on our behalf and run a 30K through the mountains in Italy? And I was like, well, that sounds awesome, but I don't actually know if I can run 30K on trails because I am not a trail runner. So I agreed anyway, because it sounded too good to not agree to. And I did like 2 12-mile trail runs with some friends before going. And I was like, I'm at altitude. I'll be fine. Like we had like 2,500 feet of climbing, and 12 and a half miles is nothing to like write off. It was not enough. It was not enough for a 20-mile trail run. Okay. Also, I learned that trail runs are very generous in their, or not, I should say not generous in their total mileage. So this actually was closer to a 32K, which I heard is very common.
Yeah.
Basically, it's called the UTLAC 30K, and then they have a 250K, which is a whole another level of insanity. It's the second year that they've held this race in the mountains right around Lake Como. So it's about 2 hours south. I actually don't know which direction. It's 2 hours from Milan. I flew into Milan, took the train, and those mountains are known as the Pre-Alps. So you basically go from sea level up to like 6,000 feet above sea level. So it was a really challenging course. Yeah. Very, very uphill, lots of climbing. I'm trying to think of like the exact, there were two really big climbs. One was more subtle and sort of over the first, I want to say 8-ish miles. Then you went downhill, and then you had this 2,500 foot climb over a 5K up to the highest point on the course. And then the rest was downhill from there. And, being a road runner, I thought I would make up all my time on the downhills, but honestly, I think the downhills were harder on this particular trail than the uphills, because they were so rocky, full of roots, tons of mud at the top, like in that peak area between miles, like, I don't know, 14 and 16, maybe a little more than that, just mudslide. Oh. Horrible. I mean, they had people there helping us navigate it because that's how difficult it was. Trying to think like what else I brought poles. Somebody had said that I didn't necessarily need them, especially if I wasn't used to them, but I got a pair and tested them out in Denver, and they were so light and so easy to carry that I was like, you know what, I'll just bring these and we'll see what happens. If I had not had poles, I would still be on that mountain. I just would have given up at some point, because there were times where I was literally pulling myself up by the poles because I had no traction in the mud. Yeah, there's an amazing picture of you where you're like standing sideways, and I can't tell from the photo if you're on your way up or you're on your way down, but you've got like your poles out and like the ground looks very unstable. And I feel like, oh man, if that was an entire race of that would take forever. That was definitely the worst part. Okay. But it was pretty close to that for a couple of miles. And the video is actually funnier when you can hear my friend. I had a friend who came and ran the whole thing with me. She's an experienced trail runner. And I convinced her to come and be my content person because I didn't think that I could film myself and stay upright using poles on this kind of uphill and downhill. But in the video, you can hear her just telling you, you just got to like do a controlled slide, just control down them. And I was like, I have no control.
Yeah.
I can't do that. Like the people who won that race must have just gone down on their butts because it was so smooth and just like so there was just no grip on anything.
Yeah, well, I see some trail running videos where people do that, where they just start
Yeah.
sliding on their butt.
I mean, I would have loved to go down that hill like Grayson Murphy handled the downhill during a race, but I mean, I probably would have been better off just like scooting down on my butt.
Yeah, yeah. Eric says that yeah, the measurements for trail races are pretty rough in air quotes on trails, but they could be more accurate if they all got all OCD and use LiDAR to do distances. It's more about elevation and time. Do
I
you know
think
what?
it's like part of the fun of a trail race though is that it's not as intense. Well,
Yeah.
I guess it's intense in a different way, but it's not as anal as road racing. And like I said, this is a very common thing. My friend was very unsurprised when I looked at my watch and I was like, okay, like we're almost at the 30K. And she was like, we still got like a mile and a half back to the finish. I was like, don't tell me that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I just feel like the distances are approximate. The numbers that they give you are approximate, and it just gives you a sense of like, am I going to be out here for 3 hours or 6 hours? Or in that range. And like, kind of gives you a general idea. Not that I have that much experience, but just
Yeah. I mean,
like,
I had no idea. My only goal going into this race, because this was my first real trail race, I did a 10K once in Vale up a ski slope. Do not recommend, especially if you're living at sea level.
yeah,
But yeah, 10K, I mean, that took me almost 2 hours because I'd been living at New York in the time. So I was completely unprepared for that kind of elevation. But yeah, my only goal going into this race was to finish before the cutoff, which was 8 hours, which felt honestly kind of tight
mhm.
given the amount of elevation and the conditions. But I did it in like just over 6 hours. So I was really proud of that.
Nice, nice. Now, all the muddiness, was that because of like the time of year? Is that like snow melt, or was there just happened to be muddy that weekend? Any?
It was torrential going
Oh, okay.
into that
Oh, okay.
weekend. Fortunately, it didn't rain until after I finished that day. We had a minute at that last peak where we thought it might be starting to drizzle a little bit, but fortunately, it held off. It's actually very unusual for that area, we were told. They don't get that kind of rain. And it just so happened that this year they got a lot of water and it really churned up the course. So
Yeah.
lucky us.
Well, for that one, I mean, the elevation is similar-ish to where you're living now. What were the trails over there like compared to the trails that you were normally running on?
Yeah, so actually we were still mostly lower than what I'm used to. It
Okay.
was just the amount of climbing,
Mm,
which I was not used to. And it was also humid, which sort of offset the
okay.
altitude benefits.
Mhm.
But the trails actually reminded me more of East Coast trails, dirt, single track, lots of roots and rocks. You're sort of like enveloped in this very leafy green environment. There were a couple grassy fields with wildflowers that we went through. That actually felt a little more similar to Colorado, but it really felt to me more like when I would hike in the Catskill Mountains when I grew up in New Jersey or, upstate New York. I'm trying to think what else made it unique. We did go through a bunch of little villages, which was nice. There's actually a fair amount of pavement on the course as well, which I loved. My friend did not love that because she is through and through a trail runner. But every time we hit pavement, I was like, yes, I can run. Let's go.
Yeah. That's amazing. And then good views of the lake as because you're like, does it go around the lake? Was that the course?
Yeah, so it goes kind of along one side of it. The 250K goes around the whole lake. But we went from Bellagio to Lecco. So you take a ferry from Lecco over to Bellagio for the start and then run your way back. But yeah, beautiful view. Once you got to the top of those climbs, just stunning panoramic views of the lake. And I actually didn't mind that there were so many clouds because, they made for this like very moody setting hanging over the lake. And I don't know, just it made
Nice.
everything feel even more beautiful.
Okay. And then what is like carb loading like in 2 hours away from Milan? I mean, like it's got to be real like a heaven of a place to be carb
Oh
loading.
yeah. God, what did I have the night before? I had pizza and pasta and bread and those little Italian breadsticks, the like really tall, skinny ones.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God, so many of those, and even stashed some of those in my pack to use as on course fuel.
Oh, okay.
There also happened to be a like not a flea market, but like a food hall vibe around the lake. So all these vendors in these little tents were set up selling all kinds of different things. And we stopped and got these like huge things, like probably like this big of focaccia that I used as my pre-race carbs. So I just kind of like stuffed that in a bag and ate that on the ferry over. And I was like, if this doesn't do it for me, I don't know what will.
I,
But
I'm
the
just
food,
I'm just envisioning that like all the zipper pockets like in your pack, like every time it's just like, "Whoop, I'm gonna get some focaccia here. I've got like some breadsticks in the other hand. You're just like
oh yeah.
eating, pulling pieces of food
It's
out.
funny, I actually didn't end up eating that much on the course,
Oh, okay.
like, not nearly as much as I probably should have, but we brought a ton of food because I had no idea how long we were gonna be out there,
Mhm.
but, the morning of, I tried the Morton 320, which I'd never used before,
Mhm.
so I, like, chugged that on the ferry over and actually felt pretty great. I had a couple gels, Spring Energy gels, so, like, the 185 calorie ones, had some of those crackers, the breadstick crackers, and then I was thrilled to see that the aid stations had Coca-Cola, which is like my
Okay.
favorite thing to have during a race. So I had like
Is
5 cups of those at each aid station.
is the Coca-Cola over there different than it is over here, or pretty much the same?
I couldn't taste any difference at that point, but it was also like pretty flat and warm.
Okay.
But like I was just like sugar, just like give me the
Yeah.
sugar of the soda. So
Yeah.
I was happy with it.
Yeah. Calvin has an interesting question that I'm also very curious about. Did the trail race have unique snacks compared to what you might find at like a trail race in the United States?
I think based on what my friend said, because again, I haven't done a long
Mhm.
distance trail race in America. They had, what did they have? They had nuts, fruits, some crackers, some cake, like baked goods kind of things. But my friend was saying at an American trail race, it would just be like junk food, just
Mhm.
straight up disgusting, bad for you junk food, which I mean, both sound great, honestly. I was very happy with what they had there. And I would also be thrilled if somebody was like, here's some Oreos.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get the sense that like, I mean, the one ultra that I did in Iowa, it was just like Lay's potato chips and Gatorade
Yeah.
and like candy like Swedish fish and gummy bears and stuff like that. And other descriptions that I've seen from other races, like when I went to go watch like Western States, it was
Mhm.
kind of just like a summer like picnic,
Yeah.
like picnic food. So you'd see like fruit like watermelon and all sorts of other like grapes and stuff like that, but also just like a lot of junk food and stuff you might other than like hot and there weren't any hot dogs or anything, but not that I remember, but it was just like summer picnic food. So that's
I would guess that the European trail races have somewhat healthier food than American trail races, because everything about Europe is just, like, slightly healthier than America.
yeah.
Um, I did see we went to one of the, aid stations, they call them life bases there, for
Uh-huh.
the 250K, and they had full-on sandwich ingredients. So people were making, like, ham and cheese sandwiches on fresh bread, and I was like, "Where's that during my race? I want a sandwich. I
Yeah,
would love a sandwich right now on my way down this hill."
yeah, I mean, I've seen some other videos where it's like there's like soup, there's ramen, like all sorts
Mhm.
of like weird things. Like people will be like, "What do you need?" And you can just it's almost like you can say anything ridiculous and like, "Oh yeah, we got that," because like there's just variety of food. But I'm it is interesting that it might be slightly different over there based on like what they normally eat and kind of what you're looking
I
for.
think their diets are just, like, a little less processed than
Yeah,
ours. So whereas we have a lot of processed junk food,
yeah,
theirs is more like nuts and fresh fruit.
yeah. Did you spend any extra time in Italy after that race, or it was just kind of like in for the race and then out?
No, I was literally there. I landed Friday afternoon and left Monday morning. Well, was supposed to leave Monday morning. I ended up my flight was canceled and had to stay an extra night in Milan. So I spent a good like 20 hours in the Milan airport, which I
Uh,
do not recommend.
yeah, that does. I mean, on one hand, I'm like, oh, I bet you it's nice, but I'm like, it's still an
No,
air.
it's not. There are definitely other airports that I would much rather be stranded in.
Yeah. Um, that's tough, but I mean, that is a quick trip because you're not even there long enough to adjust to the time zone then at that point.
No, that actually worked out pretty well. I was significantly less jet lagged. I mean, I was tired from the race and not sleeping super well
Mhm.
for the 2 nights after the race, but, compared to the jet lag after coming home from Japan, I mean, I was, like, incapacitated after that for, like, 3 days.
Yeah, I was pretty useless after coming back from Tokyo. I mean, I had a hard time adjusting to the time zone, and I didn't adjust to it until after the race, basically, like 6 days
Yeah.
later, and then trying to adjust back when I came home, I was pretty messed up. I was like, usually thought I was pretty good at this kinda thing, but
Yeah.
apparently I'm not.
The key was skipping that first night dinner. When
Ah,
I just went straight to the hotel and passed out, that was the move.
yeah, I'll try that next time. I'm gonna be like, "What's Ashley doing? She's not going? I'm not gonna
Yeah,
go."
I'm a pro at this. Not really. That was a long trip.
There was a long trip. Well, you made it even longer. You stayed for a lot longer, and you got to see
Yeah.
Mount Fuji? What you said yeah, I think I saw some pictures. You saw Mount Fuji, right? You didn't
I
go
did.
there.
I saw Mount Fuji from the train, but
Mhm.
the mountain that we stayed near for skiing was Mount Yotai. So very similar, that same kind of like conical,
Yeah.
conical volcano. But it was like directly across from the ski mountain. So as you're going down the slope, you're just like looking at this beautiful volcano.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. So you went to Tokyo earlier this year, and then you went to Italy shortly after that, um, in, like, the first few months of this year. I know you travel a lot. Is that a normal, like, amount of travel for you, or was it like, "Oh, this was a lot?"
It used to be a
Mm,
normal amount of travel. I think COVID put a damper on that
sure.
for a couple years,
Mm,
but when I was still living in New York, I traveled all the time. I mean, at least once a month was some international or domestic trip that required a plane.
mhm.
Um, I don't feel the need to do that as much anymore because I really do love Colorado and want to take advantage of being out west. But it's nice to get back to some of these international trips. I'm going to UTMB in August,
Very
so
cool.
that'll be another big journey. But I'm pumped about it. So it's worth it when they're good trips, you know?
Yeah, I think there's gonna be a lot of people out there this year.
Yeah,
Like, basically everyone brought someone out there last year.
yeah.
So, like, I was watching it from here and I'm like, "I know I'm really exhausted, I don't feel like traveling," but I'm like, "I don't wanna be there right now, but I wish I were there right now." It's definitely, like, how I
I definitely felt that way last year too. So this year when I got the invite, I was like, "Yes, count me in. I don't even have to look at my calendar. I'm going."
Yeah, yeah. What is your plan for something like that? Like, do you, like, try to get onto the course and, like, watch the racers or just capturing what do you have if you can talk about it, like, what's your kind of, like, angle for this like, I'm assuming you're going for a story or something like that? Like, what's the angle for the trip for you?
I'm going with a brand.
Mhm.
I don't have any firm plans yet. I don't know what the itinerary is,
Okay.
anything. But I do also know 2 people who are racing unrelated to brands. You
Mhm.
know, they're trail runners from Colorado, and it would be really nice to go try and see them somewhere, because I think that's a really nice, like, personal aspect to it, especially being somebody who's not as well versed in the trail world as I am compared to road running. So I think that would be nice, and my friends who are going to support them, we've talked about maybe doing a longer run while we're there, but
Ah.
nothing is set yet. August still feels very far away.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it's, like, beginning of summer now, and, like,
yes,
that's, like, end of summer, it feels like.
yes.
Um, when you go on a trip like that and this is something that I mean, I've been having people on the live stream, like, on Thursdays, and I'm focusing more on people that are on the creative side of running or in running media, kind of like, whatever that kind of means, creators or whatever.
Mhm.
And one of the questions I like to ask people is like, when you go on a big trip where it's like, there's just a lot happening and there's a million different ways that you can probably try to focus your attention. How do you tend to like approach something, let's say like for UTMB? I mean, we just talked about it a little bit, but like what's the thought process for you generally? Let's say not UTMB. Like if there was another big trip you're traveling for, maybe a brand's bringing you out, like how do you go about deciding like, oh, this is a time I need to get my camera out or pay attention so I can write about it? And what's the other stuff that you can just kind of enjoy? How do you figure that out?
So it sort of depends on the trip. When it's a fitness running brand trip, sometimes there might be a particular angle to that, a particular athlete involved, and I know that there's going to be interview time or just sort of not one-on-one time necessarily, but just you're going to be spending time with that person, and it's like what stories might come out of that. Or there's a particular event and what stories, like UTMB, I don't know what I'm going to cover yet, but
Mhm.
a lot of times the idea is to go and then see what stories arise from the event, as opposed to going in with one story in mind and then missing potential other opportunities. I generally don't. So I also do some travel writing, and one of the big things in travel writing is publicists trying to get guaranteed coverage. And as a freelancer, I can't guarantee anything
Okay.
because this industry is very challenging. And also, that locks you into something that may not come to be or may limit other experiences that you could have while you're there. So I really try to go into these experiences with, some thoughts in mind, but no particular set story and set coverage. Another example would be something like the Boston Marathon, where I went this year with Adidas, and a lot of that is personal experience. I'm going to run the 5K for the first time. I'm going to be at the finish line watching the pros and, seeing a ton of people I know coming in. And so it's like documenting that experience and sharing it with people who are watching, on different social media platforms because, you know, they have never experienced that firsthand, or they also know people running and want to have that less produced insight into it compared to what they're watching on TV.
Mm-hmm. Now, like, if we can rewind another second, like, how
Mhm.
did you? Because I feel like if someone were to like just drop into your life right now, it'd be like, wow, this is an amazing lifestyle. She travels all over the place. She gets to eat fantastic food, focaccia overflowing from her pockets, and she gets to write about all these fun running events. Like, how did you get to here? Because like some people might be like, that seems impossible. Normal people don't get to have that life. Like, how'd you get to this point?
Yeah. I mean, I studied magazine journalism in college. This was always what I wanted to do. I actually started um, in music. I wanted to be a music journalist. And that scene got kind of exhausting very quickly. Just, going to concerts every night, being out till 4. There's very much like oh, how cool are you? How cool can I be? I have to be at this, I have to be seen here. And that got kind of exhausting. And I eventually made the transition over to Shape magazine, where I was the deputy editor. So not like I wasn't a fitness editor. I wasn't, nutrition, anything like that. But I was sort of tangential to all of those sections. And I realized I just really liked that community. The people that I met within the fitness world were genuinely happy, really liked what they did, liked bringing other people into that world. And so after that, that was like 2015. After that, I really started focusing specifically on fitness and then running from there. Running was like the main thing that stuck just because I love it.
So then when you made the switch from like music journalism to Shape magazine, were all your like music journalism friends like, dude, this girl sold out. Like she's got a desk job now. Like were they giving you a hard time or was this people or are people in that industry like, yeah, that's what happens.
I don't know. That was so early in my career. Nobody really judged it.
Okay.
I think I was so young. You're at that like assistant editor or editorial assistant kind of role where you're almost interchangeable, which is like not a
Oh,
great feeling either.
mhm.
And I mean, I definitely stayed friends with people that I was friends with at that time when I went into fitness. And it's actually been interesting to see some of those people also transition into health, wellness, lifestyle kind of things because it is hard. I mean, the music industry is a hard thing to sustain for a whole career.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm imagining that transition and I'm like, that's just got to be like the volume just got turned down on like your work life, like all of a sudden very much. And I feel like for a lot of people that could be hard to kind of navigate, you know?
Yeah, well, to your point before about, oh, this looks so glamorous and so fun, and you're traveling and eating great food and blah, blah, blah. Like, yes, there is that. And obviously that's what's shown on social media, which is, one of the main ways people are seeing into people's lives and jobs these days. But it is work. I mean, let's like take Italy, for example. I had 6 weeks to prepare for a trail race of a distance I've never done before. And I had to do that after, flying 12 hours, between several flights, and taking a train and whatnot. Like that's all work too. And so it's not like I'm just being dropped in, Lecco and like, okay, let's go run a race now.
Right.
There's a lot that goes into that. And you're also interacting with publicists regularly, and, you have to be on your A game. And so these things, as cool as they are, can also be exhausting on a different level. And so not only do you have to do the things, do the trail race, for example, then you have to write about it too. So I still think it's very great and I don't want any other job, but it is very much a job. And so I think people forget that sometimes, and it has, pain points just like any other occupation.
Yeah, no, I definitely can relate to you on that one. I'm like running into a lot of them now because I'm like, oh, I have ideas, things that I want to do, but I'm like, that requires me like collaborating with people and emailing and figuring out budgets and like all the stuff that I don't like. I'm like,
Yeah.
why can't we just do the running part? Like I don't want to do any of this other stuff.
I was thinking about that a lot in Boston this year, and I was so happy that I wasn't running, because that is just one of the biggest weekends in the running year. And you think about, I mean, I went to like 6 different shakeouts on Sunday. I ran the 5K on whatever day that was. Saturday? I don't know.
Sunday. It was Sunday.
Sunday. Or so I must have gone to shakeouts on Saturday then. I don't know. I was at like 6 different running events, like actual sport of running. And then I was at a million different other things. I had clients running the race. I mean, it was just nonstop, 110% energy the whole time. And then the race happened on Monday. And I just think if I had to run that race too, I would have been just like so drained, because running is a mental thing too. You need to have those reserves of energy when things get dark. And if that cup is already emptied from, interacting with people throughout the whole weekend, even if it's all good stuff, it's just exhausting. So you can't show 100%.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I had a lot of fun at Boston, but I also wanted to just live on Newbury Street, because I'm like, I just don't want to leave, because every time if I stay here long enough, I'll run into someone else I know,
Yeah.
And so it was just like I never wanted to go, but I'm like, well, I do have to race. But I also had like just come off of Tokyo, and I'm like mentally between like the week of like fantastic fun, but like a lot of time on feet and just a lot of just like high energy, and still like we're kind of recovering from another marathon. I'm like, I don't got a lot left for today. By
Yeah.
the time
I think when it's work related, you really have to go into it with your priorities in order, and I think that's one of the things I've worked through a lot over the course of finishing all the majors. By the time I got to Tokyo, it was like, I want a PR and I think I'm ready to PR, but I'm also here with a brand and I'm on the other side of the world and I'm tired. So like, how are we ranking our finish goals? Is it the PR? Is it just getting your 6-star? Is it just finishing and enjoying the experience? I think a lot of times I've gone into races expecting all of it, and then it's like all those other factors come into play. And like with Tokyo, I got to, mile 22 and I was like, I'm tired. I'm on the other side of the world. Like, not only am I tired because I'm at mile 22, whatever, of a marathon, but like, I'm also on the other side of the world. And I've been out and about doing all these things that are very fun and very exciting and experiencing this new city, but I don't have it in me to give that extra, 10% that I need to get the bigger PR that I wanted. I did still PR.
Yeah, there you go. PR and the 6-star medal all on the same day.
It was a big day.
It's a very big day. Let's get to a quick running shoe question. Calvin wants to know, what's in your rotation right now? You can pick road trail or mix it up, or just give us like a sense of like an average week for you.
Oh God, an average week. I don't even know. The shoe that I am really enjoying the most right now, I think, is the Hoka Rocket X2, which I'm not a Hoka person. I know people love the Bondi and the Clifton, and like, they just don't do it for me. But this Rocket, I'm like, I love this. Like this could be my marathon shoe. So I've been wearing that a lot for speed. Still really into the New Balance Super Comp Trainer. I'm excited to try the second version of that. What else am I liking on road? I just got the Vaporfly 3, and that feels very fast and fun. So I'm excited about that one. For trails, I wore the Sportiva Cyclone for the trail race. I really, really love that shoe. It's got the BOA dials on it. And I mean, it generally has good traction unless it's caked in 6 inches of mud. But it's just like I wore it a lot. I wore the winterized version a lot on Denver's streets actually this winter because of the traction for snow. And so I just figured that would be the most comfortable option for a very long trail race that I was not 100% prepared for.
Very cool. I've never run in a La Sportiva shoe. I'm intimidated by the brand. I feel like this is for like, you know, serious trail runners, and I'm just like, I don't know. I like running in the woods.
No, it felt right. It's an Italian brand, so I was like, a race in Italy, this works. But I am excited to try the New Balance More Trail. It's like real nice and chunky. I like
it's a big one. It's a big one,
yeah.
but it carries it well, you know, so it works. I like that one.
I've been wearing the road version a lot for easy runs.
Yeah.
And the Nike Invincible are kind of my go-to easy run shoes.
Oh, nice. That reminds me. So like you went there like on behalf of Believe in the Run to Italy. Like, did you write up the race? It was just the visual content, or what was like kind of like what were the deliverables, so to speak?
Yeah, they just posted the real recap yesterday on their platform. Well, collaborative, you know.
Yeah. I saw that.
Yeah. And I also wrote up a written piece for them that should be on their website soon if it's not already. I haven't seen it yet. Usually Robbie sends the links to me. But
okay. That's on my understanding in conversations with you is that's a little bit rare in the like kind of like the journalism world, is that people will send you links when the stuff that you've written goes live. Is that true?
I mean, from my side of it?
Yeah, like, so like if you wrote something
on both sides, actually, like it's very rare that editors send me the link like, hey, this is published now. I usually have to check on my own. I have a massive spreadsheet that tracks all my articles and payments and, you know, links and all that kind of stuff. But then on my side, I also very rarely remember to send the links out to publicists as well, you know, or sources. It's sort of like, it's on the internet. I don't know. There's so many other things that we're all doing that sometimes it's hard to remember to send that out. So I consider it like part of my job to check the websites that I write for and see if stories have gone up. And I would assume that's part of a PR person's job too, to be checking whether the story has gone live or not.
Sure, that makes sense. All right, Eric wants to know, it's kind of related to that. This is a real question. What's the next big collaboration with Believe in the Run Kofuzi and Ashley Mateo for 2023? He wants to know.
I don't know. What is it? New York?
I'll be in New York, but I'm not on the team.
Yeah, me neither.
Are you going to go to New York this year?
Yes, I am running it.
Oh, you are?
Officially running with them. I'm sure I'll be hanging out with them because how could I not? But
yeah.
Are you running it?
I'm not going to run it this year. Okay. I think because I filmed it one year and I ran it the next, which was last year. I think I'm going to film it again for this year. I also got kind of a stern email from
I remember this.
So I don't know that I'm like welcome at their events anymore.
This is why you got to come to Boulder. They love when people film their race.
I mean, I wanted to be there. But hopefully some other time I could be there. So I'll see you in New York. Are you going to go to Peachtree? I'm going down there. Drew's
I'm not
going there.
No,
come down.
I couldn't make it work this year.
Okay.
Well, I've never done it, but I was invited and just couldn't make it work.
Yeah. I've never run it either. And like, it sounds like the worst idea. Like, hey, you want to run a 10K in July in Atlanta? It's going to be hilly. You know, I'm like, that doesn't sound great, but I'm like, oh, it's a huge race.
Yeah.
4th of July should be a lot of fun. I feel like it's going to be a fun atmosphere.
Here's my proposal to you for your next race. Come run the Slacker half marathon with me. It's a downhill race from Loveland to Georgetown in Colorado. 3,000 feet of downhill.
That's a lot of downhill for. Is that usable down here, or are you braking? Like, can you actually?
Oh no, you are flying down that mountain.
When's the date on it?
June 24th.
June 24th. All right. I'll put it on my calendar, but I'll have to see.
It's so stupid and so fun.
All right. Let me check on
Also
the calendar.
starts at 11,000 feet. So,
I mean,
like just to give you some context there, I had to walk in mile 1 last year because I couldn't breathe.
yeah, because it's so high altitude.
Once I walked and like got everything, I was like, okay, get yourself together. Then I was fine. But like, that's what makes it so stupid, but also so much fun. It's also my PR race.
Is it?
Yeah, my PR half. See if I can top that this year.
Yeah. Like last year, I was up for 4th of July. I was up in Mammoth Lakes, and there's like a road mile that Mammoth Track Club puts on, and like they're at like 7,000 or 8,000 feet, depending on where you are in Mammoth Lakes, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I just could not breathe. I mean, not that you do a lot of breathing in a mile race, but like it took me so long. It took me longer to recover from the race than it did to run the race.
It's the oxygen getting to your legs. That's the problem. It's like I don't know, last year, like doing this downhill race in that first mile, I was like, there's nothing going to my legs. My legs are just dead weight. Mm-hmm. And so I had to reset. And once I reset, I was like, okay, now things are working again. But it is wild when you get up that high, how quickly it affects you.
Yeah. And I don't handle it well. This is what I learned last year. All right. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Oh, you know what? We didn't even talk about your newsletter.
A newsletter, yes.
Rundown, which I feel like has been a great way to keep up with everything that you're writing, and also everything that you're.
It's been nice to have a platform that I don't have to get ideas approved. I don't have to sell them to an outlet. It's just sort of, hey, this is something that I think is important, and people seem to be resonating with, on other platforms, and so.
Yeah, let me ask you a quick question about that before. I know we were wrapping up, but like,
that's fine.
Are you worried that like it'll cannibalize ideas from like stuff that you want to pitch, or like how do you balance that, like the writing that goes there versus the writing that you are trying to publish on like bigger platforms, like you had an article on CNN recently. Like how do you figure that out?
I think the newsletter is slightly more personal. I think it's a little bit more from my voice as opposed to the CNN voice or the women's running voice or things like that. My goal is to be doing more reported features that don't really fit into those publications. I have a couple ideas. I'm not going to give them away, but things that I would like to take more time to report out and don't seem to fit what those kind of magazines are looking for right now. I think a lot of the industry is driven by, affiliate marketing right now and SEO and things like that. And so having my own platform where I can take some of the ideas that I see resonating, whether it's on Instagram or in person with other runners, and really dive into those. Like, I don't really know how to explain how I would differentiate, but ideally, this will be a place for me to dig into those bigger ideas and not have to worry about pitching them, which can take months sometimes to find a home for a story, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, it's so strange to me that the pacing of like running content is so like has so much lead time.
Oh my God. I recently did a story that was for summer 2023 gear testing, and it was assigned in September and due in October of 2022. I was like, guys, I can't, the gear isn't out for summer 2023 yet.
Yeah.
It's not there. So I think that is also one of the aspects of it. Like, I can move a little faster on this platform if there's something that I don't want to wait to pitch. Very
cool. So I've posted the link to that in the description of this video, so people can find it there. What's the handle on Instagram in case anyone wants to follow you over there?
Just my name, @Ashley Mateo.
Awesome. All right. Well, Ashley, thanks so much for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. It was good.
I can't wait to see you next week in Boulder.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. All right. I'm going to take you off the screen, but stick around for just a second. I'm going to wrap up the podcast here. All right, guys. That's going to be it for today. Thanks everyone for tuning in. No video tomorrow. Well, there may or may not be a video tomorrow. We'll have to see about that. Probably not, but we will do another live stream same time as today, 1 p.m. Central Time. Hopefully I'll see you then. Until then, in the meantime, be safe out there, everybody. Thanks. Bye.